What's good guys, my name is Oleg Nikitin, you're watching No Limits On channel from Russia with love, and welcome to sunny Morocco and to Sahara Desert. Today we are comparing the photo capabilities of Honor Magic 3 Pro and iPhone 13 Pro Max. Enjoy watching. This is not a paid or sponsored review and comparison, and I'm looking at those photos side by side in JPEGs on my 5K iMac, and I comment those to my own taste. Let's get to the comparison. And here we are in Sahara Desert, which is pretty cool guys, and we can straight away see the difference in color. iPhone's sky is more towards blue and cyan, and Honor's color is more pale. Also we can see the difference in the color of sand. Honor is leaning towards orange and yellow, and iPhone has more neutral color. And here is the shot with the telephoto cameras, 3.5x or 90mm equivalent on Honor and 3x or 70mm equivalent on the iPhone. Straight away I can say that iPhone has much more digital sharpening, which I don't like, and all of my reviews are like so. If a camera has too much digital over sharpening, this is bad because you cannot take it away in post, but you can add this digital sharpening in post if it's not digitally sharpened already. Here we have a selfie shot, and we have different color of sky and sand on both cameras, and I think it's about your personal preference. I have to mention that Honor Magic 3 Pro is only for Chinese domestic market, and you cannot buy this in the US for instance or in Russia, only through AliExpress website, but still I do want to compare those two flagship phones from pretty big companies. So here are the specs of the Honor Magic 3 Pro. You can see that it has 50 megapixel main sensor, 23mm f1.9, also the monochrome camera, which I didn't really use, and it has 64 megapixel f1.8, an ultra-wide camera with 13mm and 13 megapixels with f2.2 aperture, and a telephoto camera, 64 megapixel periscope camera, 90mm focal length, and f2.4 aperture with optical image stabilization and a depth of field sensor. Let's move on, and now let's compare the main cameras. We once again see the difference in color, but this time iPhone has more towards orange in terms of sand, and Honor has more neutral sand color. And by the way, these are in different locations, like 5 minutes difference, because it's very hard to shoot from both hands when you're riding a camel, and it's a pretty cool experience by the way. And now the sunset shots, I do prefer the iPhone's more contrasty and more saturated picture, but we can definitely tweak the Honor's picture and get similar results, so it's a matter of personal preference. Also, Honor Magic 3 Pro has high-res mode, which provides you with 64 megapixel photos or 50 megapixel photos if you'd like. And without cropping in, you can barely tell a difference between the 12 megapixel photo and 64, but when you crop in, we can see that Honor was stacking the pictures, I guess. That is why it's not that sharp. So I suggest using a tripod when you do these high-res pictures, but when you use Honor in regular camera modes, it's around 12 or 13 megapixels. And one more shot with 64 megapixel Honor high-res mode, and we can say that it's barely different, and I think that the normal camera mode on Honor is just as good as the main camera on the iPhone as far as I see, and it's okay not to use the high-res mode. And now let's compare all camera modules on both phones. I can see straight away with the ultra-wide lens that Honor in this case is more contrasty and also more saturated, and iPhone is kind of pale looking. And you can definitely tweak those colors and contrast afterwards, so we won't pay attention to this, we'll pay attention to the sharpness of the image. Honor has less noise and probably a touch more digital denoising, and also pretty sharp picture. I really enjoy this picture comparing to the iPhones, but to see this difference you definitely need to zoom in a ton. And now the main camera module, we can see the difference in focal ranges, 23mm versus 26mm on the iPhone, and with cropping in I can barely tell a difference. Probably iPhone has a touch more digital sharpening, but overall real sharpness is kind of the same. And now the telephoto module, 90mm versus 70mm on the iPhone. Without cropping in we can barely tell a difference, but when we zoom in we can definitely see that the iPhone is sharper, and probably it's because the optical image stabilization is doing a better job with the telephoto module. Honor does have the 10x kinda in-camera toggle, but it doesn't have a dedicated lens. That is why it's probably a crop from the 3.5x camera. And here we have the similar result. iPhone is a touch sharper, but I wouldn't use 10x digital crop in almost any situation. I'd prefer to just walk with my feet towards the object. And by the way, I'm not comparing the video capabilities in this episode because it's going to be too long, And I'll be doing the video comparison in my next video, so stay tuned for that. Comparing this ultra wide angle portrait shot, or kind of a portrait shot, we can see that Honor has less digital noise, of course, and also a lot of detail, which I do like. And I would prefer this picture on the ultra wide on the Honor. And on this shot with the main camera, we can say that they are almost identical in terms of dynamic range, in terms of sharpness, in terms of detail levels, color even. It's just very, very close. Maybe a slight edge to the iPhone, but it's like 0.5%. By the way, guys, I forgot to mention that we're walking together with you through the streets of the city of Fez, which is very famous because of its leather manufacturing. And this place is where the leather is getting color. And it's, a pretty interesting place, but the smell in there is just horrendous, awful, or whatever. In terms of picture quality, I do prefer the Honor's ultra-wide shot, and in terms of the main camera, it's kind of identical once again, so it's a matter of your preference. The thing I love about Morocco is that we have a ton of colors all over the place, and we can see the color reproduction on both devices, which is definitely different. And on those two shots, we see that the iPhone has more noise, but also more detail. Probably Honor does a lot of digital denoising to its footage. And now let's have a look at natural bokeh we shot on the main cameras pretty close, and this is how the natural bokeh looks. Looks pretty similar to my eye, and probably iPhone has a touch shallower depth of field, but it's negligible. And now let's get to macro photography. Honor has the macro mode as well as the iPhone, and we can focus really close with the ultra wide lenses of both of those phones. It's a pretty unique macro look, and I don't really like this type of macro look. I would prefer a 100mm macro on a full frame, and we have some kind of a solution right here. We can take an external macro lens like this one from Apexel company, I hope I pronounce it correctly, sorry if I don't, and we can use it as a 100mm macro lens and get this kind of results. The cool thing is that it's pretty portable, it has its own clamp, and also the image quality is pretty good. It's very sharp indeed, and it really provides you with the look you're looking for when you shoot on the macro lens like 100mm macro. Also, you use the main camera sensor, which is better for low light of course, and I have to mention that you're not focusing closer than with the ultra wide lens, but you definitely get a better perspective. Look at my eye right here. It's just so distorted with the ultra wide, and it looks pretty natural with the macro lens. And one more example with the field of view, and you can see that you have two options right now if you use an external macro lens and the built-in ultra wide macro lens. Since you can move the point of contact on this clamp, you can use it both with the Honor phone and also with the iPhone or basically any smartphone. I'll leave a link for this macro lens in particular down below. And Apexel company has a ton of options for your external lenses, so check those out. And here it is with the minimal focusing on the Filmic Pro app. You can definitely see the difference in bokeh in the background, and also if you put this lens onto a telephoto lens, which is not a good idea actually, it's not built for the telephoto module, but you can get some kind of this shot, which is so-so, but it works. And now let's move on to low light photography. With the ultra wide camera we can see less contrast on the iPhone and also a tiny less detail, I would say. I'd prefer the picture with the Honor. Once again, the ultra wide camera is exceptional on this smartphone. With the main camera module we see pretty comparable pictures, and when we zoom in we can see a touch more detail on the iPhone. And now the telephoto modules, I would say that iPhone is sharper, and I'd say it's because of the better stabilization on the telephoto module of the iPhone. I took this shot when the sun went down, and also you can see that it's pretty bright and we can get a ton of colors and not a lot of noise on both of the pictures. And when it's getting darker, I'd say that Honor applies more digital sharpening than the iPhone, so this situation with digital sharpening flips here. On this shot with the ultra wide lens, I do prefer the image of Honor and its white balance, great job. And in terms of detail and sharpness, they are pretty comparable. I see less noise on the Honor's picture. On the main camera module, we see the improvement on iPhone's picture, and it's sharper and definitely has more detail, probably once again because of the stabilization. And now the telephoto module, once again I do prefer the white balance of Honor, and in terms of sharpness they are pretty close. The thing is that Honor always applies around 4 seconds of exposure when you use night mode, and it's pretty limiting and you get worse results on darker scenes. And to get better results you should use the Pro mode on the Honor. And just to show you the work of night mode and the difference, here is the shot with the ultra-wide lenses, only 4 seconds of exposure on the tripod with Honor, and also on the iPhone, which had around 15 seconds of exposure, and we can see much better results with all the cameras. So the night mode on Honor is more towards late evening shots, not for the night shots. You'd use Pro mode, tripod, manual focusing, manual exposure, 5, 10, 15, 30 seconds of exposure, and you can get much better shots. I'll show you in a minute. And let's get back to Sahara Desert. You can see on this shot that iPhone is struggling with the flares and you have to be really careful and precise. And speaking of night mode, if you use night mode, which you would during the night in the desert probably, you would get this messy shot. But you can definitely get better shots, let me show you. And here is the shot with the Pro mode, 30 seconds of exposure with Honor smartphone, and you can definitely see the big difference. So night mode is for amateurs, I guess, and the Pro mode is for pros. You can get some awesome results. And with the iPhone, I can even see the Milky Way right here, which is awesome. And also I did a couple of shots with my Sony a7S III and the 24mm f1.4 G Master lens, which is just crushing everything. Yeah, of course it's a full frame lens and a full frame body, so I'll be doing a review of this lens later on the channel, so stay tuned. And now let's talk about the portrait mode, which is kind of a disappointment to be honest to me. We have a beauty mode, which I don't use and I prefer not to use it anytime, anywhere. Also we can toggle on or off our blur of the background. We have 1x camera and 2x, which seems to be a digital crop from the main camera. And also I don't really like the white balance, also the over sharpening, the detachment from the background, and the background blur itself with the portrait mode on the Honor phone. Sorry guys, but you have to do some steps to improve this part in your smartphones. iPhone is doing a ton better. Of course it's not perfect, especially with this shot with the earring. We see some artifacts and it's not perfect, of course, but still it's much better. Also, Honor has aperture mode in which you can choose between f0.95 and also f16, and it's kind of a portrait mode for your static objects, and it's working pretty okay and correctly. You have only one option, which is 1x camera, and I'd say it's better to have this option than not to, but it's not the best option. And let's finish this review with this beautiful sunset, and we can see some banning, which is pretty obvious and kind of gross to be honest. And maybe if we shot in Pro RAW with Apple device, we could get some better results, but it is what it is and it's okay for Instagram. And on YouTube you would definitely see the banning even if it didn't exist here because of the compression. So guys, Honor is a pretty strong competitor and I do enjoy using this ultra-wide lens on the Honor smartphone, but all in all, iPhone is more well-rounded camera and it's doing pretty good job in all of its special modes like portrait mode, night mode, aperture mode or whatever. It has cinematic mode by the way and all that stuff, and we'll compare the videos soon as well to see which camera is better overall, but I would definitely say that the ultra-wide lens is pretty cool on Honor and it's very sharp indeed. The main camera, probably iPhone gets a slight edge, and the telephoto is kind of very similar, and it's a matter of personal preference after all. But since we cannot buy normally in Europe or in America, or basically anywhere the Chinese version, the Honor Magic 3 Pro, so that is why iPhone is kind of winning here probably, because we do have the access to this smartphone. If you have different thoughts and opinions, please guys share them in the comment section below. Also, if you did enjoy this video, smash the like and subscribe buttons as I say in my videos and hit the notifications bell. My name is Oleg Nikitin from Russia with Love. Here is my Instagram and a couple of videos for you to watch next. I hope that you did enjoy the views of Morocco and I see you guys in the next video. Take care, bye.